Hey guys, I'm Mr. Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review a series. This time I'll be looking into Wednesday. If you end up enjoying this full series review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my petition, second and third to my Patreon and PayPal, and fourth to my Discord server. Any and all donations are greatly appreciated. And shilling will be reminded at the end of the review. With all that out of the way, let's get into Wednesday. So, before getting into the main plot, I saw the trailer about like 2 or 3 times beforehand, and I will say that I saw certain other people's reactions to the trailer more so, and I think that a lot of people were more so thrown off that she was being placed in a school that was geared towards her, and that was sort of not the point of her character, and it was all about, like, you know, their interactions with more humanoid characters. However, I do think that this is a nice change of pace while also being a pretty solid way of world building. Sort of the Addams Family sort of lore, if you will. I'll also note that the previous Addams Family's movies haven't been really sticking the landing. They have been pretty weak so far in comparison to sort of the original material that I used to partake in. So, in that regard, I am, when I first saw the trailer initially, my whole thing was, like, this is very much in tone with the Addams Family, and turned up to an adult degree, or more, slightly older humor, I guess, if you will. And I think that is greatly appreciated and well missed from the original Addams Family, is the sort of dark humor that can get really close to inching towards, like, that's almost like too far in the dark direction. It just consistently, I think the first little bit, which the trailer, the first episode has that bit in the trailer is like one of the opening scenes. I think that moment in particular is definitely one of the strongest moments in the entire season. And I do think that's a very strong set or opening sequence for this sort of season to sort of occupy. It allows it to show us that this has a more adult edge, that they are willing to go dark, and I think that combination of two things is what really sets this series up for success rather than failure. However, there are a few minor setbacks I will be pointing out along the way. So, as I mentioned before, she goes to a school that is more so designed to house other creatures, much like herself, is a very interesting individual herself. So she's occupying a space with all these other creatures. She is housed or schooled with a about her aged werewolf girl who is very preppy, and this is not anything too untypical. Even in the original, or one of the Addams Family movies, one of the earlier ones, you have it's a very easy pair for the character you pin her against, or with in some instances, is a complete 180 of her character. That is an archetype that is very easy to write material for, is usually doing the 180 of your main character. That's a basic in one-on-one storytelling. It's one of the many basics anyways. It does hit upon a cliche, but I've said it so many times on my channel that everything at this point is a cliche. So it's all, again, depending upon the execution. So I do think that the offset of her is done fairly nicely. It's okay enough. And her this character's subplot is is not too surprising, considering her 180 personality, that she would be invested in romance and cutesy things and all of that stuff. So it fits her character that she would fall under those kind of things, while Wednesday partakes in the complete 180 of those things, to a degree, up until a point later on in the series where she becomes invested, or I should say, interested in her own way to some humans, or quote-unquote humans in the show. So yeah, it mainly follows her. Her family is sort of like these side characters that sort of make an appearance, and they have some stuff that they resolve later on with the family itself, but primarily we are following her adventure. And here we find some I would say, probably one of the more creative things of, like, how do you explain one of the simplest things of, like, a character's name, or, like, where they got a thing from. So, that happens a lot in movies where it's a prequel and they're trying to explain why something happened, and for the most part it usually sucks, or it's not that great. I found this one to be particularly kind of actually interesting by comparison. The whole snapping the finger twice. Apparently, at least within the school, there's a certain location when you resolve a certain particular set of puzzles or mysteries or whatever you want to call them, it leads you to the answer of snapping twice. And I thought the sort of complex way of getting to that rather simple answer was pretty interesting. It was something that I think took a little bit more research on their part to look at a particular writer that's mentioned in the story, sort of put together these clues that can get them to reveal that sort of answer. I felt that was a lot of work to get to that answer, so I felt like that deserved, like, a bit of recognition. They actually put in the work instead of just saying, he got this name because of this stupid reason. It's not just like some stupid, simple backstory reason. There's actually a little bit of work they clearly put into it. So again, I wanted to recognize that. As for all the other elements, I will say, and I will start pointing out some of the weak points, is that unfortunately the antagonist's CGI isn't really that strong or that good. It is very noticeably bad and very rough, particularly with the eyes. I'm not sure what they were trying to accomplish with this look, but it is very... it looks more funny than frightening, and I don't think that's what you're supposed to be going for in a show that's supposed to, be all about sort of the more nightmarish and close to like spooky elements of this sort of environment. So I don't think the antagonist design is particularly well handled, and unfortunately, with a season 2 seeming to sort of try to lock itself in, I do think they sort of trapped themselves with that design, which is very unfortunate. And the other weak point that I will point to is that most of the writing, and I would say a good chunk of it, is relatively strong. In particular, Wednesday's character, her writing is particularly really strong. However, there is a point in where I heard a bit of dialogue that I felt was completely out of character for everything that they were setting her up to be. So I figured I might as well point this out. And this isn't the first show to do this, and in certain other instances I could be like, ugh, it's still aggravating, but I can kind of see why they might want to do that, even though my interpretation of this line has consistently been bad overall. So anyways, the line in question is her talking to her quote-unquote crush or boyfriend or whatever stage they're in at this scene, and he's explaining something, so you should already know where this is going the moment I said explaining something, and she literally says, "Are you man-explaining?" And this phrase, ever since it was first invented, I always thought that this was some sort of self-sexism thing that women did to themselves. It's like, why would you invent a word where you uplift men to then downplay them back to some sort of a quote-unquote equivalency that it... Why would you go through all that effort to, again, almost attack men? It almost seems like its inception is more hurtful to women than it is to men. And again, it always baffles me every time it's used, and particularly in her case, I don't see why a character of her stature would bring herself to use such a sentence, or utter that phrase in particular. It doesn't come across as strong in her suit. She seems to be more of a character that is more well-rounded but flat in that regard. So I don't see why she would even know that's a thing that exists. Like, she doesn't seem like someone who would catch on to that lingo in the first place, let alone use it. It doesn't fit her character at all. And again, I just don't think that it's a very strong thing to have women say that line in particular. I thought the inception of the word itself seemed more harmful to women overall than men in every instance. So yeah, there's that. There were some articles that I caught on to, and these were, I don't know if they were SJWs or whatever, people who were saying, or articles that were putting out there that that they weren't allowed to have bully characters who were black, apparently. Yes, that's apparently a thing, and then, of course, since that came out, other people on the right have, gone on the attack when they caught on to this little shtick, because, of course, they are able to do that since, people on the opposing side have pointed to that. And first and foremost, to address this little situation, I don't know whoever wrote this even watched the show, and I really put a big question mark considering they put the phrase bully as the thing that they were referring to this character as, and I looked back and I was watching through the show with that in mind. I was like, that doesn't even fit necessarily. So to explain what's going on here, more in depth, is that the first interaction we see this character sort of go through is Wednesday, first and foremost, is the one to even confront her. So I don't see how that's equates to a bully, first and foremost. Wednesday who is the one who initiates a challenge in this sort of fencing competition. That's like their first interaction with each other. So again, Wednesday is the one coming with the attack. However, Wednesday is also the one who doubles down. So again, I'm not sure why this other individual will be called a bully when Wednesday is again doubling down, saying, take off the mask, we fight until someone draws blood. Again, that was Wednesday who pushed for it, and then she lost on her own accord. She was the one who set that up and lost. And again, while I would assume that the writers don't know the difference between an antagonist of a show and a bully, is what I'm trying to tell you people who are watching this review this far in, is the only assumption that I can make, because if I were to say to describe this character that she confronts with a singular word like her archetype, bully would not be the word I would even use. If anything, I'd probably go with stuck up, if anything else. At least on initial viewing, when we first see her, she seems to be like one of those top of the student type of archetypes. So again, I'm not sure how that even fits into the bully category necessarily. And I think that got confused with the Owl House or something like that, because Amity from the Owl House is something I would point to be like, yeah, that was an individual who's like the top of her class and a bully. Two separate things, but she was both of those things when we first saw her. But here, that I never came across, the second part never came across to this character. We are seeing this antagonist to Wednesday's character. And even later on in the season, it seems as if they start even working together. So again, I don't understand where this bully phrase even comes from. It doesn't make any sense. The person who wrote that did not watch the show, or did not pay close enough attention to the show, or they just wanted to rile people up into thinking that's what it was, when that's not even what it was to begin with. So I don't know. Anywho, after adjusting that little kerfuffle, I would say, other than the smaller weaknesses that I pointed out, which is a creature's design and one of Wednesday's dialogue, written opportunities here being completely against her character, I think overall the show is still a good show. I think that this is a very good Addams Family, sort of, targeting this particular character and really shine in her own light. I do think that the majority of the writing is still really solid, especially with her, outside of that one off-put line. So I do think that the world and lore that Tim Burton has surrounded with this, this character is very fitting and is very refreshing to the sort of Addams Family vibe. Definitely hits on some of the vintage stuff while bringing in new elements that would very well fit with this type of character. I do think that, again, the majority of her writing is really, really strong for this type of character. The dark and gloomy, someone who consistently keeps outcasting people and pushing them away, and it takes so much. It takes through the entire first season just to get her to hug her first friend. And when she does get emotional, it does come from a place that would make logical sense when, when her immediate family, the ones that she actually does care about, is in danger. Because we have Thing, who follows her throughout the Hand character, and when that character's sort of life, I guess, is in jeopardy, it makes more sense for her to have a more impactful response to those sort of specific scenarios. So, as an overall show, with some slightly slacking CGI and one bad line, I would probably still give the show a 7 out of 10. I think for the most part, this one slip-up does not slip it up to be like a 6 or anything like that. I would just be mindful for a season 2 to avoid things that would make her seem more out of character, because that would easily start to slip it downwards when very clearly it's more building to a strong season 2, but unfortunately, again, I don't know what they're stuck with the CGI or not or whatever, but nonetheless, I would still say that it's a solid show. so far as season 1 is concerned. And there is my full review of Wednesday. And if you ended up enjoying it, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to check out those links in the description. 1 will head you over to my petition to help out smaller YouTubers. 2nd and 3rd to my Patreon and PayPal, where you can help support me and my channel directly. And 4th to my Discord server. We can join other YouTubers, collab, and share your own content there for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.